In a widely publicized incident in Shanghai, a number of owners of Shanghai's Suhe No. 1 organized a rights defense campaign because they were dissatisfied with the building's collapse. Despite the fact that most of these owners are billionaires, the outcome of the incident wasn't changed. The rights defense activities were strongly suppressed by the police, and several owners were arrested. As seen in the videos circulated on the internet, the enforcement of the law on the spot was very strict. One of the owners was lifted up by several police officers during the protest, and even though he kept struggling and waving his arms and legs, he was still unable to resist the police's coercive action. There are comments that in China, if you don't have a high-ranking official in your family, no matter how rich you are, in the eyes of the government, you can be played for a sucker at will. Many netizens have also expressed their views, saying that the incident has exposed the current situation of power over money under the current system. A netizen commented, "Without power, the rich are still lambs to the slaughter. Even the rich can't escape the fate of being fooled under a system where power is paramount. In the past, these rich people may have disdained ordinary rights defenders, but now the retribution has come upon them." The Shanghai incident also reflects the deep-seated problems in China's real estate market. Nowadays, the problem of unfinished buildings has become a big problem for many homebuyers, while the continuous sharp decline in housing prices has put many homeowners in a new predicament.
北京通州这个房子
The price of a house in Tongzhou, Beijing is now only half of what it was. I want to jump off the building. When it first opened, the price was as high as US $4,100 per square meter, and it wasn't easy to get one. You had to have money and connections to snatch one up. At that time, all the flats for sale were forward delivery housing. Now, the situation has completely changed. The housing price is now only half of what it was. It has been cut directly to more than $1,400 per square meter, and it's all existing houses. The neighborhood has been completed, and the supporting facilities are also very good. There are villas and high-rises, and the distance between the buildings is up to 120 meters. The landscape design is very exquisite. There are a lot of flowers and trees, and the environment is very nice. The incredible thing is that you only need to put down $11,000 to buy a suite here. The developer has also given away $8,300 worth of appliances, and even says that as long as you're willing to buy a house, you can negotiate any terms and conditions, completely compromising with the market. It's amazing how fast things are changing.
真是变得太快了。
The fall in Nanjing's housing prices is really alarming, and I'm afraid that if it continues, the market's order will be impacted. Do you know how dramatic the drop is now? Take a star property in Hershey, for example. In 2021, the transaction price for a 93 square meter unit was USD 690,000. At the beginning of this year, the price of the same unit had dropped to 390,000, a drop of 56%. Looking at the core area of Jiangbei, in May 2021, the price of a 139 square meter side suite was US 860,000. But in October and November this year, the price of the same suite dropped to US 390,000. However, in October and November this year, a large number of properties were listed at only US 3,590 per square meter, a significant drop in total price, but still lack of interest with an overall drop of more than 50%. Such a rate and magnitude of decline makes people worry about the future of the market. It's worth noting that even though housing prices have fallen sharply, people's willingness to buy is still very low. The CCP authorities have recently launched a series of policies to stimulate the market, but the effect has been limited. On November 18th, the Beijing Municipal Commission of Housing, Urban and Rural Development, and other departments jointly issued a notice announcing the abolition of the criteria of ordinary housing and non-ordinary housing as of December 1st, and specified new tax incentives. Housing purchased more than 2 years ago is exempted from VAT, while housing purchased less than 2 years ago is subject to full VAT at a rate of 5%. For the deed tax rate is reduced by 1% for a family's only home of 140 square meters or less, and by 1.5% for a home of 140 square meters or more. The second home of a family will be subject to a preferential tax rate of 1% and 2% respectively. It's worth noting that the relevant authorities in Shanghai also announced a similar policy on the same day, which came into effect on December 1st. Some commentators have pointed out that buyers of homes over 140 square meters may not care about this tax break. People who want to buy a house now have no money, and they won't buy it even if the tax is lower. A fun blogger explained that the main purpose of the policy is to lower the cost of buying a home through tax relief in an attempt to activate market demand. And netizen said bluntly, ordinary policy is already difficult to pry the willingness to buy a home, and fewer people are now buying homes. Another netizen said, those who can't afford it still can't afford it, and the root cause of the problem of housing prices is the gap between the rich and the poor. In reality, many ordinary people's living standards are already stretched to the limit, and it's even more difficult for them to buy a home. The following is a sharing from a netizen which truly reflects their living situation in the past year. This year has been a very difficult year. Is there anyone like me? How poor are you? I didn't even buy my son's clothes. They're all from last year. I didn't buy my usual pajamas or anything else, and I only bought a pair of shoes because my son's feet have grown. So I had to buy new shoes. As for the other clothes, they are all made up, and I don't even bother with the school uniforms. My own situation is even worse. All my clothes are from last year, and I haven't added any new ones. My hair hasn't been cut for half a year, so you can't tell right away. As for skincare, I just use the cheapest lotion I can find. I don't know how this year is going to be like this. What about you guys? Is there anyone more embarrassed than me? Or are you in the same situation? In addition, indebtedness has become a major problem in Chinese society, and the increase in the number of non-creditworthy people has had a huge impact on the social credit system and the economic environment. Today, I read a statistic. The number of people in China who have lost their credit has exceeded 8.4 million. It's important to note that these 8.4 million people are the enforcers. Not all of them are the defaulters. A few years ago, if someone negotiated a cooperation and found out that the other party was a person who had lost credit, he would have some fear in his heart. Now, however, this seems to be the norm, and it's not uncommon to find people with bad credit around. Today's business environment makes it difficult for many people. For them, the impact of credit has been less important. Looking at the current state of life, many people are earning hundreds or thousands of dollars in salary, but are carrying tens of thousands of dollars in debt. Their monthly paychecks are wiped out by online loans, credit card installments, and so on, creating an endless cycle of borrowing to make up for what they've lost. What's even more worrying is that many people don't see any risk in this practice, nor do they have any worries about the future. When this kind of thinking gradually becomes the default mentality of most people, I'm afraid that the whole society's concept of credit is beginning to be shaken. If there are only 800 people who have lost their credit, then only 800 people will be embarrassed. But if there are 8 million people who have lost their credit, then the credit system itself will be embarrassed. And if the number of people who have lost their credit reaches 80 million, then the whole society will be plunged into a crisis of trust. This isn't just an increase in numbers, but a shake-up and challenge to the entire credit system. Some netizens also pointed out that people working in government institutions are having a hard time. It's unbelievable. At present, there are more than 8 million civil servants and more than 40 million civil servants working in public organizations in China. Together with the retirees, the number of people relying on the financial system to support them has already exceeded 90 million. Such a large group, once the economy downturn and financial constraints, can we still live in peace and security? In fact, the first signs of this have already appeared in some places. Today, I chatted with a client within the government institution in Hefei, and he mentioned that the local finances were under great pressure, and some people had even defaulted on wage payments. What is more obvious is that the demand for loans has become increasingly common. Some people rely on credit cards to meet their daily expenses, while some even secretly take out additional loans from the internet, thus leading to a tight life. Of course, he also mentioned some advantages within the government institution, such as a relatively high provident fund, job stability, and no need to worry about unemployment in the short term. But even so, the pressure of life isn't much easier than those outside the government institution. It's sad to see that every year countless people still want to enter government institutions. Is this path really viable in the future? There are also concerns that the rebound hasn't continued, despite official data showing a 0.9% annual increase in the number of contracts for new commercial properties across the country in October, the first increase since June 2023. Early November saw a sharp drop in transaction data from a year earlier, and prices for second-hand properties have continued to fall. According to a report by the China Index Research Institute, the average price of secondhand homes in 100 cities across the country has fallen for 30 consecutive months, down 7.27% year-on-year. The pressure on real estate companies remains severe, with investment by 30 real estate companies dropping 74% year-on-year in October, indicating that corporate confidence is extremely low. The main land buyers in the market are still centralized enterprises, state-owned enterprises, and local urban investment companies, while private real estate enterprises are generally cash-strapped.
许多老板大概率是熬不过今年的。
This year is probably the toughest year for many bosses. This isn't alarmist talk or a joke, it's the reality. What were the market conditions like? It was like 5 people eating 8 bowls of rice. No matter how they shared, they could all be full. Now, 8 bowls of rice have become 2 bowls, and someone will always go hungry. Competition has become brutal, and it's either you die or I live. In the past, when there was plenty of money in the market, you could make a lot of money with a little bit of effort. But now, even if you work hard, it's still difficult to make any progress. How easy it used to be to make money and how hard it's now. Look at the stores on the street. How many of them are really doing well? The stores aren't crowded and business is slow. Consumers are becoming more and more cautious, and the pattern of consumption will gradually sink in the future. Apart from the necessities of life, most families will be extra careful with their spending. Even for the essentials, people will pick the cheapest ones to buy. Some platforms have capitalized on this trend, attracting consumers by keeping prices low at the expense of merchants. Consumers may initially feel that they're getting a bargain, but in the end, they may be tied up by the platforms, making it difficult to get out of the trap. In such an environment, ordinary merchants will likely be gradually eliminated from the market.
消亡和退出市场是不可避免的。
On the other hand, the debt risk of China's real estate industry is gradually penetrating into the banking sector, and the chain reaction brought about by the continuing consumer downturn is further aggravating the overall pressure on the financial system. It's reported that the non-performing loan assignment business is currently expanding rapidly. In the third quarter of this year, the turnover of non-performing loan assignments amounted to 64.5 billion, representing a significant year-on-year increase. For the year-to-date, the listing amount reached US $22.471 billion, and the transaction amount was US $17.622 billion, of which 84.74% was for individual business. However, this growth isn't a positive sign. The 21st Century Business Herald pointed out that the hundreds of billions of dollars of expansion in the non-performing loan market reflects the expansion of financial risk, which not only puts pressure on the quality of bank assets, but also reflects the weakness of economic fundamentals. Not only is mainland financial risk accumulating, but Hong Kong's banking system is also affected. Global rating agency S&P warned at the end of October that Hong Kong's commercial real estate sector was experiencing its worst downturn since the Asian financial crisis, putting pressure on the asset quality of the small and medium-sized banks. Hong Kong's small and medium-sized banks, whose exposures are highly correlated to the commercial real estate market, are likely to see their business conditions deteriorate further. It's widely recognized that these conditions not only reflect changes in the current economic environment, but also raise widespread questions about the government's ability to manage the economy and society.